I cannot. I cannot be the only one who think this. I can't. I can't be the only one that believes that Stephen A. Smith is low-key a Trump supporter. I hear him say he voted for Kamala. I know his heart was with Donald Trump. Anyhow, this guy's been on an awakening path. He joined Bill Maher and completely obliterated the Democrats by perfectly articulating why they got destroyed and dismantled and everything, all of their attempts to undermine Donald Trump and the American people completely backfired. But before we get into that, I want you to see Stephen A. Smith right here defending Donald Trump and says that Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass need to be fired. And then I'm going to show you the clip of Bill Maher and yada, yada.
Gotta go.
They gotta go. You know what? They gotta go. I don't give a damn if they do. After what I've seen last week, they gotta go. They gotta. I'm done. I'm done, Kevin. I'm done.
Sometimes there are natural disasters you can't do a damn thing about. When a hurricane hits your house down in Florida, what can you do? Are you yelling at the politicians to stand out there and stop the winds?
Kev, I'm not going off about the fires. The fires is not their fault. But when firefighters are standing there and saying there's not enough water in the fire hydrant.
That's true.
When Donald Trump asked for water to be pumped from Canada into the LA system and Gavin Newsom opposed that. When you're hearing about environmentalists compelling him to protect smelt and little fish and salmon at the expense of LA citizens, of California citizens, Kevin, I don't need much else than that. I just don't. Maybe you're nicer than me. Maybe I'm too cruel. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it.
Then they gotta go.
You know what? The American people said that we were sick of it on November 5th of last year. Donald Trump is back. We got mean tweets. We got midnight mean tweets again, y'all. And he is not pulling his punches. Now, we have the point of this video where Stephen A. Smith take on immigration during his segment with Bill Maher. Quote, "You're in this country illegally. The hell with your process." Ooh, I know he was snapping. Now, before we get into that, I want to acknowledge that I just started my Instagram channel for those who might care. King the Reacts _ so make sure y'all follow me there. I'm not too good with the whole trying to sell y'all and create the ad for it and all. Anyhow, let's get to the point of the video, though.
Okay, so let's talk about the border one. Okay. Because ICE is now detaining people. This has a lot of people concerned. The Laken Riley Act, I'm sure you voted on that. I think you voted no. Okay, but it did pass with 46 Democrats in the House voted for it. And in the Senate, it passed 64 to 35, so I think about 12 Democrats there. This is a law that says that ICE can detain any illegal who is charged, arrested, or convicted of a crime, not merely an accusation, so don't get excited, Karens. Has to be charged, arrested, or convicted. Now, Ruben Gallego, who we've had on this show a number of times, and I think has bigger ambitions, that he's now the senator from Arizona, he voted for it. He said, "I'm bringing the perspective of working-class Latinos from Arizona. That perspective, I think, has been missing." And he talks about people who are largely out of...
it's only common sense, right?
...touch with where your average Latino is. It sounds like he's calling out people like you who voted no.
I like Ruben. There are a lot of Latino. I do. I think he ran a hell of a race. But there are a lot of Latino leaders who also voted no. Here's the basic thing in this country. If you're convicted of a sex offense, of a violent offense, absolutely you should be deported. But if you're just arrested, we are a country which we have due process, and you should have a trial. I think that's a reasonable position. I think most people can agree also that, yes, let's...
Due process for illegals? Do you hear yourself? This guy. Somebody stole his bike when he was a kid, and he just did not get over it.
Deport convicted felons, convicted criminals, but let's not deport our nannies and students or dental hygienists who've been living here for years and have kids in communities. We can have a common sense position on this.
I get that. That makes a lot of sense, but there's a flip side. So, for example, if I remember correctly, based on my research, in Sacramento in 2023, there was a law passed in terms of empowering the governor of California to really force environmentalists and the courts to move quickly, 270 days, if I remember correctly, something along those lines. Why do I bring something like that up with a subject like this? Because here in your state, they can drag their feet and prolong certain things. And as a result of that, things don't get done nearly as fast as they should. When we're talking about immigration and we're talking about immigrants who may be criminals, you're talking about them being arrested. Let's have due process. But if it takes too damn long to address it, that pisses people off. That's one of the problems that exist in this country. You're looking at stuff and you're like, okay, you arrested him. Was he in jail? All right, you let him out. Recidivism is an issue in this country. You let somebody, you arrest them, you're letting them out the same day, stuff like that. You got law enforcement officials that are getting discouraged because they're looking at it and they're saying, wait a minute, why are we out here risking our life and taking care of this stuff when y'all are just letting people out? You got to handle business. And a lot of times we hear about the red tape and all of that stuff, and you're talking about a candidate right now who's not president to be the president of the United States now. He's sitting up there and he's talking about expediting the process at every turn. Let's just get stuff done. Let's just get it done. Now, I don't know if I trust that. I don't blame you for not trusting it. But we have to understand the American people are saying, you know what, enough's enough. We've tried it that way. We've been doing it that way for decades. We sick of y'all. Let's wait. Let's go through the process. Let's arrest somebody. Let's let them out. Let's put them back out on the streets. Oh, let's make sure they have due process. You think somebody wants to hear about due process with somebody that's in this country illegally? They want to hear that. You're in the country illegally. Hell with your process. Yeah. You got the audacity to admit a crime after you got here illegally?
Illegally?
We ain't trying to hear that. Nobody's trying to hear that. So they're saying, wait a minute, what are you going to do about it? Where is the common sense in that?
That was exactly my stance. I'm in 100% agreement with this. You're already here illegally, and you want me to have some sort of empathy towards the idea of due process for you getting caught up in a crime. I don't care if it was a traffic light violation. If you here, you're not supposed to be here, that's a problem. I'm not saying by any measure that I'm against immigrants. No stretch. I'm not also saying that there isn't an issue at the border in terms of having them be able to come through in America without so many hurdles, so to speak. So I'm not saying that we don't have any issues in these areas. But at the merit of it, dog, you came here the wrong way and you want me to treat you the right way. It ain't happening, bro. I don't get how they want us to process stuff like that. Now, the first clip that I showed you in the very beginning where Stephen A. Smith was going off on Karen Bass and Gavin Newsom, and he said he was done with him, which I personally feel like that was his way of admitting he's done with Democrats, one of his ways at least. This is prior to that moment, I assume, because Stephen A. Smith hates to admit that Trump and Republicans are making sense, while Democrats are guilting voters into voting for Kamala Harris. So yes, this was definitely prior to that. This was posted on the 11th of this month. So it was prior. That's all we know right now.
Touch for me was California, because I have to go out to LA a lot. And I am a fan of, I shouldn't say, listen, I like Gavin Newsom, the governor of Florida, from the standpoint as a person.
Ooh,
like, in other words,
that's a rare comment said in this room.
Nice person to talk to, because I've had conversations with him in the past. Highly intelligent individual, looks very sharp and very presidential in those suits. And then you see what's going on in California. You're like, nah, that's not me. These high taxes, the homelessness, the crime rate, etc. I'm looking at all of this unfolding because you have to remember I've been going back and forth to LA and New York a lot, pretty much since 2003. And so I see that, and I see the regression that has taken place. And so when people are going off, particularly folks on the left, and they're talking about these policies and what policies are better and what's not, and then I see folks on the right talking about real life issues and stuff like that, I'm like, I hate to admit it, they make a lot of sense. They make a lot of sense because I'm here. I'm pulling up to the gas station, the price of gas. I go to the supermarket for myself. I'm not one of those dudes that just send people to go. I go. Yeah. I know what the price of milk is. I know what the price of eggs are. I know these things. Yeah. I pump my own gas unless my guy is with me, my security. I pump my own gas. I see the prices of this stuff. I'm like, what the hell is this? And so I look at things from that standpoint. And when you hear people talking about practical things, and then I saw folks on the left basically trying to guilt me into voting for you. It bothered me. I might have ended up voting for Kamala Harris because I didn't like how Trump acts. But what I didn't do was call him a racist.
I didn't call him a Nazi. I knew Trump before he ran for president.
Yeah.
We talked on the phone. We talk at basketball games or boxing events. I knew this man. And so some of the things that were being said about him, I knew were not true. And I was saying, come on, y'all, that you got to do better than that. And I look at all of those things, and all of those things contributed to my ultimate move to Florida, because I said, it's time to think about me more and stop being guilted into looking at things through their lens. And that's where I'm at.
I know that's right. I know that's right. First of all, kudos to him despite his acclaimed TDS that he suffered from. He was still able to acknowledge that Donald Trump was the man that he knew on a person-to-person basis versus the man that the media tried to force him to believe. Great deal of respect for being able to acknowledge the approach from the Democrats and the approach from the right. Two very different approaches. He mentioned how he hears a lot of the issues that the right talks about and the solutions. Well, he didn't necessarily say solutions, but that's what I garnered from it. And he spoke about how they are practical, common sense, basically. And where he talked about how he hears the left talk about these issues and it don't necessarily carry the same weight. What I really got from it is that it's usually some emotional response, because he mentioned guilt trip. They always try to guilt trip you. If you don't vote, think about it. If you don't vote for me, if you don't vote for Joe Biden, you ain't black. You know what I'm saying? If you don't vote for Kamala, you're a misogynist. You're not doing it because you don't like women, and you're not doing it because she's allegedly black. You know what I'm saying? Like, they always have these reasons that are very different than the actual reason that you have yourself. Let's read a few of these comments. Well, here's the clip from him from January 6th. We might tap into that just a second, but wow, they got a lot of clips. Right here says he's sick of defending the Democrats after their conspiracy theories continue to come true. We covered this before about the January 6th situation. This video right below it, I'm not familiar with. No one wants to hear from the Democrat Party. That was actually posted last year in December. So yeah, before I even checked even more, you got Bill Maher right here. I think this part more appropriate. Tell Stephen A. Smith he prioritizes the joy of speaking his mind over everything else because of the genuine appreciation he receives from his fans, pulling his punches. What? What does that mean? This means more to me. Meanwhile, his colleagues in Hollywood pull punch for 4 years. You know what? It got to make sense, right? For us to click on it. But yeah, overall point of this is, I don't want to sit here and try to stretch it and make it anything else. I'll just say that Stephen A. Smith defending Donald Trump despite his dislike towards Donald Trump, I give him kudos for that. The fact that he's able to see the hypocrisy within the Democratic Party and remove himself from his ideals, I guess, from his party to be able to look at things in an objective way, I got to give him kudos for that. But there's a great deal. Well, not a great deal, but there's still a level of delusion if he still thinks that being on the Democrat side after what we just witnessed in 2024 or for the last 4 years. I mean, the man said it. He go to the grocery store himself. He see them prices himself. And if he sees them prices himself, he knows. Somebody said we are on the good side. You can only lie so outrageously for so long before people catch on. Somebody added in terms of Stephen A. Smith defending the Democrats. And I completely agree. I think that's honestly how I got to this point to where I'm at now. I was watching them CNN clips just like everybody else. And then I watched the full clip of Donald Trump. And then I went back to CNN and watched how they chopped it up. And I called myself defending Donald Trump. Y'all stay tuned for the next video. It's crazy.